Welcome back, people. Lateness is still greatness, regardless of the manager in charge. 100% still going to be coming to you at the madness of times. I'm joined by Dan McCarthy, and it's great timing in a way because you're a coach yourself. So, do you know what I mean? This is the perfect opportunity for us to get inside the mind of a new manager. Obviously, Thomas Tuchel has been appointed. 18-month contract as well, which is not really, very long term. It's very short term for Chelsea, potentially because either he wasn't their first choice or just because they maybe know the inevitable of what can happen. But at the moment, as per usual, there's a new manager bounce. How are you feeling about it, bro? What's your initial reaction to the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's here, right? It's Tuchel time or Tuchel time. I don't know if we've actually figured out yet how to say it.
You can put the names together, Tuchel and Chelsea, and they actually do fit very well. So credit to that.
Yeah, I'll go Tuchel. But like I was just telling you quickly there off air before we got on, I think the official statement coming out has kind of provided closure on the Lampard reign, and now we can be somewhat excited about what's to come, hopefully. In positive times for Tuchel. So just closure on the old and then on to the new.
Yeah, it's been a very toxic few days. I can't lie on Chelsea Twitter. I mean, there's literally as soon as the sacking happened, reports got dropped of so much stuff going in behind the scenes. But like you said, the new announcement from the club has kind of just hopefully settled everything down. And I really just want to talk about Tuchel because he is the guy who's going to be leading us into the rest of the season. They also said about Tuchel is that he will be in the dugout for the Wolves game. Is he going to be taking charge of the Wolves game or is he just going to be in the stands? Because he's only had the one training session tonight, isn't it, at 6 p.m.?
As I'm aware, he's taking charge of the game. Like, he'll be on the sideline implementing. I mean, like kind of Nuno said when Nuno Espirito Santos was asked today about it, he was, about what to expect. I still think it's going to be a very Lampard-looking team in the respect of, the way we play. Like, Tuchel's not going to have time, right, to implement and by the way, I'm sure we'll get into it later, such a really rigorous regime that Tuchel runs. So I think we won't see too much difference in how we play. But Tuchel will be the guy in the Chelsea tracksuit or the suit leading the way,
A lot of people as well have said that, they kind of feel that this change in management is the end of a project. Do you see it as a continuation? Because obviously I know you've done a lot of homework on Tuchel and he does. I feel like the players that we have do suit potentially what he's trying to go towards. Of course, not every single player that we have in the squad is going to suit him and we're going to have to make changes as you always do. But I feel like there has been a continuous run with the club to at least try and play attacking football and progressive football. At least that's been continuing throughout the last, 3 managers now. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's the argument between, you can look at this two ways. You can go, are we abandoning, the project and the dynasty that Roman clearly wants? Because that was obviously the plan with Lampard, right? But on the same token, you can look at it, like you said, Mar, very well, that it's a continuation of what Roman wants, and that's attacking free-flowing football. He's craved that for years, and he's wanted that for years. And, Tuchel, for all the worries about, him blowing up and being combustible, he plays very good football. He's a very good tactician. And I think that's the reason Roman wanted him, and he was available. And, I think we could definitely see a continuation of what Roman wants, which is attacking football. I think Lampard wanted it in the end, high pressing, exciting football. But there's a few players that will benefit from this for sure. Hopefully some more than others, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But it should be exciting.
I mean, people have been going around obviously speaking about who can benefit, who's not going to benefit. I think the immediate reaction was just that, all of the Cobham boys are screwed. There's been so many silly comments of like Mason Mount and Hudson-Odoi. They're not going to have a future now, and it's going to be Pulisic and Havertz and Werner. And I was just like, well, I'm pretty sure Tuchel, likes to work with young players. So I don't think suddenly all the Cobham boys are completely dusted out here in the streets, as they say. But it's going to be interesting to see because obviously he's very flexible as well. So before we was always this season, especially was like, right, 4-3-3. That's what Frank wants to play. This now with Tuchel, he's quite flexible. He likes to go from a 4-3-3 to maybe a 4-2-3-1, a 3-4-3, depending on the opposition. Kind of that willingness to win whatever way is possible, not necessarily just one way. So, I mean, from a coaching standpoint, obviously you said that he's going to take a while as well to implement. We got a comment here from iTest Merchant saying, first of all, can we beat Wolves? They beat us already. I mean, are you confident going into the game against Wolves? Obviously, it's tomorrow. It's not a lot of time, is it? It's only one training session.
Yeah, like I said, it's not going to be. It wouldn't be. It'll go down in the record books as a Tuchel win, but it won't be a Tuchel win. It'll be a Chelsea win. It'll be like the players, and we've seen it before. Reactions when new managers come in. Some people say it will be all over the place and tactics will be all over the place. But a lot of players, respond to new managers, and a lot of players, it's just modern football. That's the way players are. So, I don't really know what to expect, but I wouldn't be overly surprised if we won the game. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't. It's a Chelsea, as they say.
Yeah, 100%. Like if you apply it to work, right? If a new manager comes in at the workplace, you kind of just sit up straight naturally. You start to, you know what I mean? It gives you a boost, and you want to impress. And these players will know, and I would hope, as a Chelsea fan, that even if he doesn't make top 4 this season, Tuchel wouldn't be sacked. I know that's crazy. A crazy logic behind that, and I know that it's Chelsea Football Club and anything can happen, but I would hope that if he didn't make, he's coming halfway through the season, if he doesn't quite get top 4, I would hope that he's still here next season. I'm sure the players would know that, and obviously one of the issues that maybe in the last few performances they kind of knew Frank was on his way out, and they didn't play for him in the way that they should in that Leicester game, etc. I mean, which players do you think are going to benefit the most? Because obviously we're going to get into the details of how Tuchel wants to play as well, and all those things as well. But who do you think will kind of fits in immediately to what Tuchel will want to do?
I think he'll look to get the best out of the Germans immediately, right? I think that's a given. I think he'll try something with Havertz and Werner that maybe Lampard was too late to try, or something he didn't try at all, right? Tuchel's known to play a 4-2-2-2 when needed, and that's something that might suit them guys. So. Other players that will benefit, I'm sure Pulisic will be excited. He's obviously had a relationship with him in the past. Even Callum could be excited to maybe get more game time. Tuchel will play youth, and that's actually, from what I've been told, is a given. Like, Tuchel's been made aware by the club that this continuation of youth has to happen. We can't just be a band. I know results obviously the first and foremost and the most important, but we've seen recently that kind of typical, right? That our last game. One of our youth products got a hat-trick, and one of them the other one captained the team. So, it's not one or the other. It can be both. Right? We can play the youth and succeed at the same time. So that's definitely in Tuchel's head. But yeah, there'll be a few. You can argue. I'm sure we'll get into Rudiger and Jorginho's later, and then let's see Lord there with Alonso resurrection. So it'll be very up and down. Yeah.
I would be surprised to see an Alonso resurrection, because we talk about Tuchel and he's a very off the ball. He wants high intensity. He wants to get the ball back as soon as possible. And obviously in the 3-4-3, which he might adopt at times, then I say Alonso will fit into that quite quickly, because obviously he's a wing back. He's played wing back a lot. I wouldn't expect him to jump up the pecking order above second. If he was to maybe jump above Emerson for the tactical flexibility of the formation, but to jump ahead of Chilwell, I'd be surprised. I would assume Chilwell would suit Tuchel quite well in the fact that he's such a high intensity runner and all these things as well.
Absolutely. I mean, Chilwell screams Tuchel in the respect of. I mean, when we saw Chilwell at Leicester, he was flying forward, and even when he first joined Chelsea, he banged in a couple of goals, got a couple of assists immediately, and that's because he was kind of given free rein. I think more recently he's lost his confidence, maybe tactical switch, and we get frustrated with him now receiving the ball and going backwards. But I think under Tuchel, you're going to see hopefully an old Chilwell way, he's just bombing forward and going on. So it should be exciting.
Yeah, 100%. And again, in terms of we get onto Rudiger and Jorginho, I think it has been reported. I don't know how serious the reports are. Maybe you would know better than me in terms of the credibility of the reports. But obviously, they've said that Rudiger, especially, I would expect Rudiger, from the German link, but also Jorginho is probably going to be more heavily involved in the team in terms of how he wants to play. We saw at PSG he used Verratti very much as the vacuum for the possession and to almost run license to dribble and he spoke about it in that really good interview with Rio Ferdinand that he's not going to tell the likes of Neymar, the likes of Mbappe, Verratti how to find solutions in tight areas. We do have players that in tight areas can be, they can be quite creative themselves. So do you expect to see those two more often? I probably would say, yeah, isn't it?
I think if you look at it from a pure statistical point of numbers, then yeah, I'm sure their numbers will go up from what they were. In terms of if they're, stalwarts in the team, like they're pillars in the team for the next 2 or 3 years, we don't know. It's way too early, right? We don't know what Tuchel wants to do in the transfer market. If he's given back in the transfer market, it's way too early to know that yet. But yeah, I would say if you're looking at it from a numbers point, then I would assume that you will see their numbers probably improve. And like you said, their Verratti was a big part of that. And Jorginho can do a similar role, just really sit, and then that will allow the 2 8s, which Tuchel has been known to play as well, to really, one of them being a hybrid between an 8 and a 10, which could be a Kai, could be a Mount, we don't know yet. They can kind of do their thing, and then the wing backs come flying forward. So it's exciting. If the two get going, it's exciting.
And Gilmore comes into this as well, because there's always this pit with Gilmore versus Jorginho, and who is better for the team, who can do the job more. And you think Gilmore would also suit that with Tuchel as well, a player that wants to get on the ball. We saw Kante in that DM position as well. Do you think that that could be the end of Kante playing in that role under Tuchel? Or do you think that's still a possibility? Because obviously Kante we saw under Sarri, who was another manager who based his game on positional play a lot as well, is that he didn't want to see Kante in that vacuum area of where Verratti plays, is because you're maybe going to get the most touches, you're going to be put under high amounts of pressure on the ball, you're going to have tight spaces to turn and things like that. How do you see Kante progressing? Because he's always cool. It's always been very up and down with Chelsea fans on where's best for Kante and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my immediate thoughts would be that he would play more in the kind of 8, the box-to-box midfielder, which Tuchel likes to adopt. He likes having 8 who goes up and down, and who better for that than someone that could rock for days and days and days. And just with Tuchel's system, I think Kante would be a lot more comfortable playing in that kind of 8 role, the box-to-box, which Tuchel likes to adopt. That's what I would say just immediately, right? But again, it's still early days for, even in my own research, and I'm doing a lot of, it's still kind of early to see who will play where and when, and what formation because, his traditional 4-3-3 is what he likes to play. But, this is a different squad. This is a different kettle of fish. So this is a very, he could come in and play a 3-5-2. We just don't know yet. But if I was a betting man, I would say Kante in the 8 will play a 4-3-3, and then Jorginho and Gilmore. Hopefully, Gilmore will get an opportunity to showcase himself, because I think he can do that job very well.
No, 100%. And we've got a comment here from Ryan Test Merchant. Thank you so much for the super chat, bro. You think Tuchel will have studied the way Wolves play? I mean, there's a lot up in the air in terms of when this was actually confirmed, because I felt, and personally, I felt after that Leicester game, Frank's time was up, and I was almost shocked that it didn't come to an end on the day after at Leicester. But obviously it's clear now there was behind the scenes stuff going on. He shook all the players' hands after the Leicester game, and then they started to speed up the talks with Tuchel, and then he took the Luton game, potentially gave Mason Mount that reward for the hard work, giving him the armband and whatnot. So do you think in his head he even started preparing for this Wolves game, or is it just straight out the doors, today's the first day, do you think?
Knowing Tuchel, kind of what I've read, seen, spoken, I think he would have looked at it. I mean, how extensively, I don't know, but I think he would have looked at it and known that Wolves was the next game coming up. And, it's unfortunate. It's the politics in football, right? That, he would even know. He would even know that's coming. But that's football, and people don't like it. People don't get it. Like, I've tweeted the word politics, and I've wrote the word politics, and people just don't want to go there, but it's there, unfortunately. So, I think he would have had an eye on it, and he would have prepared for it as much as he possibly could. But I don't think he's, sitting in his room studying Wolves for 10 hours. Like, he's got a lot more to do than do that,
Yeah. It's funny. You mentioned the word politics, and that is a word that just screams out from all of these articles that have come out in the last few days about what's been going on at clubs. Just screams politics. What will be interesting as well is to see, obviously we've seen Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, those type of players in and out of the team as well. Hakim Ziyech. We've got a lot of great attackers in this team. Temper expectations as well, because I feel like I've kind of alluded to it, and this is why maybe potentially Tuchel wasn't glaring out to me as first choice in the door. Maybe Chelsea as well as a club. We know they wanted Pochettino, but obviously it was too late. He'd already gone to PSG. We know that, Nagelsmann is a big target of theirs as well. So Tuchel wasn't exactly top of the pecking order, and that's maybe why he's got the 18-month contract. But you talk about time, and I really want to get into depth for this because you're a coach yourself, so I think you're going to give us some great insight on this part, especially is that in terms of Tuchel, it is going to take time for him to implement exactly what he wants, because we've seen some great videos, and I don't want to blow it up out of proportion and only go with that, because obviously we have to see what he does on the pitch as well. We've seen some great things in terms of defenders carrying tennis balls so they can't grapple onto others while they're defending. We've seen corners of training grounds getting cut off so we don't go into a spamming cross situation as well as a team. So there's a lot of ideas that he's probably fresh ideas that he's going to bring into the team, but it's going to take time to implement. As a coach yourself, how long does it take to really get the ideas into the players' heads, or does it really just depend? Obviously the intelligence of the squad comes into it as well, but he's got some big complicated ideas that he's probably going to want to bring in. It's not going to take time. It's going to take time, isn't it?
It will take time because, and like you made a good point there, Maya, in your question, that a lot of it does depend on the quality of the players and the adaptation of the players. Like, if he was managing a League Two side, it would take a lot longer, right, to implement a pressing system. Whereas he's managing Kai Havertz, he comes to mind first. It will be a smoother transition, and hopefully many will want for. I think Lampard did try to play a high attacking pressing system. That was the ideal. He always talked about that, and he always talked about wanting Chelsea to work hard off the ball. That was always his plan. Unfortunately, he couldn't really get that consistently. We saw it in moments, against Leeds United, it was very good, and that was the good times. And unfortunately, there's been accusations of him making the players tired, training's being too hard. Well, good luck with that, because Tuchel is a madman on the training ground. I know that for a fact. He will push that team hard and hard and hard. And he'll push him even harder, knowing he's only got 18 months, so he's got to do something in the next 6 months. So, the players have really got to adapt to that. But what I will say in answer to your question, Matisse, is I think we will see an immediate effect in the next 6 months, just because Tuchel's experienced enough to kind of implement something quickly, and he's got the players to do it. And then I think when we get to the summer, if he's allowed to recruit or not, is when we'll really see, and with a pre-season which will be afforded to him, hopefully, right, which Lampard unfortunately didn't get. I think that's when we'll really see the Tuchel system really fly. And then that year will be key, right? If Tuchel stays off of the extension that he has, the year extension, or if he goes. But I would say it actually might be a smoother transition than many might imagine.
Really? Yeah, because people did worry about it. And myself personally, I was thinking, will Chelsea go with an interim manager? Because obviously short-term objectives sometimes lead to a short-term appointment, in the fact that we need to get top four. We're not. It's not the best situation for a long-term manager to come into, in terms of you're coming in mid-season, you've got no pre-season, you've got no transfer window, because really this transfer window seems redundant. Like, nothing's really happened. And obviously we know Chelsea's position in the fact that they have to get rid of players to bring them in, not because of really finances. I think finances, they're doing okay, but squad places wise, there's just a lack of space for any newcomers. I want to get onto some of the younger players quickly before we go on to a few others. But Mason Mount has been spoken about as someone that is at risk. I personally completely disagree. He's not going to get the same volume of minutes, because I don't think it's possible, right? He played every single game under Lampard. But I think Mason Mount is, as a player, in terms of what Tuchel represents as well in his team and what he's going to want, someone that moves the ball quickly, someone that is off the ball aware as well. He's developed the defensive nous off the ball to win it back, and understands that. And just from Mason's character that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, the hard work that he's willing to put on the pitch, even when, all seems hopeless. I mean, just how do you think he's going to be just as important for Tuchel as well?
I do. I mean, I agree with you. He probably won't play in the minutes that he simply played at Lampard, but that was easy and understandable for Lampard to do, because Mason Mount provided a link between what Lampard really wanted, and Mason Mount understood that, right? And he was there. He was kind of tasked with kind of implementing that more across the whole start of the level or the whole squad, right? Advertising his work rate and stuff. So, yeah, I think Mount will be key for Tuchel. I think because he wants to play the system he wants to play, the way he wants to play it, and Mason can do all that and more. So yeah, you might see a little tweak in terms of what he expects of Mason. Lampard even cited that he wanted Mason to score more goals, and Tuchel might want the same. We might see that, but yeah, I wouldn't. Those people who are against Mason or don't like Mason or think Mason's going to be bombed out, you're going to be struggling for a while. I think he's going to be key for Tuchel as well.
The mentality of the player is it's not something you can defeat. He is inevitable. Do you know what I mean? Like, credit to him, no matter what situation he's put into, he is going to, for me, he's still going to flourish. Because you look at just, the loans that he's had at Vitesse, Derby, and then at Chelsea as well. And it is going to be a bit of a shell shock for the players, because it is the first time that managers changed for a lot of these young players, bar Hudson-Odoi. They've all come in with Lampard at the start of last season. And now this is the first time where it's like, yo, welcome to Chelsea. This is how it goes here. We do sack managers. So I am also really excited for Reece James as well. I think someone of his technical ability is really going to thrive, because we speak about his crossing, and we're going to get onto Chilwell as well. Someone's just mentioning a really good comment here on the chat. Reece James, someone that is so versatile as well. Someone that can be inverted, that can take up central positions. We've seen the way that he has so many different crossing techniques, the way that he takes up central areas, and he's able to shoot from distance and pass as well. He's going to be a great player to see under Tuchel. Do you worry for Chilwell? Because obviously, I wouldn't say Chilwell's as technical as Reece, but do you worry for him in any aspect in terms of technically? Do you think he can cope?
Yeah, I think he can cope. I don't worry for Chilwell. I think even I don't want to talk about politics because the club will want Chilwell to play, right? Let's be fair. Like, they spent a lot of money on him, and that is a thing. But I don't want to go too far into that. I want to be kind of trying to say it, as transparent as possible with this. Reece, good points on Reece, by the way. He's tactically very inept. He can do many jobs, and I think Tuchel will love that. And I think Tuchel will actually experiment with that, and he'll use that to his advantage. What he has to do as a new manager, right? You have to trial and test out things and see what works. So he'll definitely be afforded that. I think Reece James will be key in the squad. But I also think he'll like Azpilicueta as well. I think Tuchel will rely on him as well as club captain, someone that's very loyal to the manager, as we saw with Lampard, and also very, connected with the club and everybody in it. So I think he'll use him too. But yeah, with Chilwell, just like at PSG and previous clubs that he's had, one fullback has been more technical than the other. He had Dani Alves at PSG, who's obviously unbelievable, right? And you can maybe compare him to Reece James in the technical aspect. And then Bernat on the left side maybe wasn't as technical, but still a very good player. You can maybe argue that's Chilwell. So yeah, I don't think we have to worry about Chilwell or Reece James. I think they'll be very key in the system for sure.
Yeah, for most teams, actually, that does seem to be the better option, is that one player is a little bit more technical than the other, and the other one's maybe more athletic. It does actually seem to balance out the team quite well. Dani Alves has spoken really highly of him. You just mentioned Gundogan at Man City, Pulisic as well. I mean, obviously, for me, Frank Lampard was always learning on the job, and I would never have put him even really in the top 8 or top 10 in terms of managers in the league. But in terms of Tuchel coming in with the experience that the club was looking for, where would you place him in terms of head to head with the other managers in this league? Do you think he can cope with the competition of the Peps, the Klopps, the Mourinhos, the Rodgerses, the Ancelottis? There's a lot of good managers in this league.
A lot of good managers in the league, and the league's becoming more and more tactical. Like we used to say that the only somewhere where the Premier League used to struggle was tactical awareness and tactical efficiency, right? And then Pep came over, and then Brendan Rodgers is now who he is. So yeah, I think Tuchel's definitely up there. He'll definitely be able to cope. He came from the same school as many of these big managers did, right? The German school of Rangnick that everybody's talking about now. And Tuchel has shown that he's very tactically flexible. And he can do different things, different approaches. So yeah, I think Tuchel will be fine. I think he'll find a way to compete and to make Chelsea, improve in that respect. And that's the one argument you can maybe say about Lampard, is that, for how much I love him, support him, and everybody knows how, what I thought about him, he wasn't tactically flexible enough, and he was perhaps stubborn at times. And Tuchel will not. Tuchel is stubborn in other ways, as we already know, right? But tactically, he's very flexible, and he's very good at highlighting other teams' weaknesses and exploiting them for sure. So yeah, I think, just to summarise, I think he'll be fine in the Premier League.
100%. And we've also just got some news that I don't know if you've seen the chat, but they've been spamming the chat with this news. Simon Phillips, obviously, great mate of yours that you work with, has just tweeted out that Chelsea new coach Thomas Tuchel has a task to persuade Kante to stay at the club. There are fears that the midfielder has grown increasingly unsettled by the amount of upheaval at Stamford Bridge. Obviously, he's seen Conte now, he's seen Sarri, he's seen now Frank, and now Tuchel coming as well. And let's be honest, Kante is not one of those characters that seems to like drama, so it makes sense in that regard. Power battles have broken out amongst Chelsea's inflated squad, which we'll talk about that very soon as well. Recent weeks, Kante has stayed out of any political battles, big word we've been using as well in this stream, and he's not the type of character to talk to his managers, club bosses about how he feels. That really, not to be reactionary, of course, we that's only just come out, but that really does sound, that makes a lot of damn sense. Do you know what I mean? That's literally that is literally exactly what you'd expect Kante to all be about. Is he wants to be settled, he wants to be calm, he doesn't want all this drama. We're talking about politics within the squad, player battles, we're talking about upheaval of management. I've just gone through 4 managers now since Kante's arrived, and 2 of those managers have been here for under 2 years. Conte just hitting the 2 years. What do you make of all that? Just initial reaction, because that's worrying, isn't it? Do you think we could calm him down in that situation?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I don't know if you can tell by my reaction, or I didn't panic, because I've already heard and already been told that Conte is something to keep an eye on. Basically, is what I was told, and I've actually spoken to a couple of people who are very well connected in the club, and one that you actually mentioned there, not Simon, by the way. That's pretty much a standard every day, but yeah, someone that's very key, and someone that's dropping news on that right now as we speak. And yeah, I was aware of this before, and Yeah, like you said there, Matisse, it's 4 different managers. He's lost key friends in the dressing room. Conte, he was still very affiliated with a lot of the older kind of players who have now left the club. And, his future's talked about so much, and he's being rotated so many times in positions and he's still regarded as world class. He's still paid as a world class player, and he knows there's a market out there for him. Obviously, he's very humble, very great guy, but he's also aware of his standing in football and how much he's adored. So, I would, if I was, it's very early, and it's just before I've even done any digging, because obviously I'm talking to you, and I'll get more as it comes. But just my immediate reaction is this smells, as I like to say, like Conte will be leaving. I think in the near, he could leave in the next year or two. I'm not saying he will, because I just don't know yet. But there's a lot of stories coming out now. Kind of what I've been told and heard about this in particular. I wouldn't be surprised if someone came in from Inter Milan or something, and he did go. But again, way too early to tell. But yeah, Chelsea have got a task now to keep him for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, even before this came out, Kante's future has always been a little bit up in the air, along with Jorginho, those two, because, they're two players that even Kante now, you do struggle to pin him down to an exact position of where he is strongest, especially in that 4-3-3. We spoke about him potentially playing the 8 as well, but also just from a wage standpoint, like you said, the likes of Kepa, they're the highest paid players in the squad. They're not exactly players that then retire here on those wages either. They have to take wage cuts, or you do try and get some sort of price for them at some point. Whether the market for Kante is still huge, again, because of his age as well, you have to, and obviously he did have injury concerns, which seems to have kind of gone away now. It's not as drastic as it was before, but it'll be interesting to see, just how important he is as part of the plans going forward. We know about transfers in terms of the interest for Declan Rice. It was reported as well a lot today and yesterday that it's not as strong from the board side, and it was more of a Lampard target as well. Do you think Declan Rice, because obviously that's potential someone that could have replaced Kante, do you think he is kind of just there's not really any chance of that happening now?
Yeah, it's something I'm very close to, as you know, and I've spoke so much on this because it's definitely unlikely at this point. A lot can change, Imagine the scenes if Tuchel comes out and says he wants Declan Rice. That'd be kind of funny, but I don't see it. It's 100% true that it was definitely more of a Lampard-driven thing. The club became pretty, disgruntled at that whole pursuit, which I disagree with. Actually, I think it's kind of pathetic that we're worried about buying a player back that we released. Like we bought back.
It's very strange.
It's extremely strange. It's very business savvy, which is Chelsea, let's be honest, and it's very numbers driven, and I don't agree with it personally. But yeah, I think it's very unlikely that we'll see Rice. And if anything, if we do need to replace Conte and we have Tuchel as the manager, he'll be looking into Europe, into the French and Italian leagues, I think, before he looks at Declan Rice.
Yeah, value for money as well. Declan Rice can be very expensive. And one thing I've never seen Chelsea get involved in recently is a bidding war. And that, the likes of Man City, with Rodri not being that great at the moment, in my opinion, Manchester United definitely could use with him as well. So those two clubs, if you get into a bidding war with West Ham over Declan Rice, you don't know what the fee's going to rise to. And I haven't seen Chelsea really get involved in bidding wars, so to speak, for quite a few years. So that's always the case as well. I mean, it's just back onto Kante. It's such a conclusion to what we've seen over the last few weeks, because there has been so much drama. There has been so much upheaval as well. And Tuchel's biggest task is how is he going to manage this squad? Because that was obviously Lampard's biggest issue towards the end of his tenure as well. How does he go about, if you used to put yourself in his shoes, how does he go about managing a big squad full of politics and experience, where the squad is kind of backwards in a way, where the younger players are actually, some of them, better than the more senior players on an ability standpoint, but obviously the senior players are on more money, they've got the accolades, the World Cups to their name, etc., etc. How do you balance that potential ego clashing with the fact that Roman and the board have also demanded that they want to continue to see youth as well in the next few years?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. I think if he's smart, he has to give everybody, he has to give everybody the thought and the train of thought that they're going to get a chance, right? He has to kind of take that picture that everybody's going to get an opportunity to impress. Everybody's going to get a chance to kind of fight their way back and find their way back in the starting team. So if Tuchel's smart, he will do that. But we also know about Tuchel's character, right? And the story is about that. And he's a very stubborn man. He demands certain things at certain times. He's very honest. He's very transparent. And if he doesn't rate you and doesn't like you, he'll tell you, rightly or wrongly. That kind of sounds like Chelsea as a club, really. But So if he's smart, I think he'll give the impression that everybody will get a chance. But he's naturally going to have people he's more excited to work with than others, right? Let's be honest. He's going to be more excited to work with probably a Havertz than he is a George. Well, maybe not a Jorginho, but maybe a Havertz and a Ross Barkley. Just throwing it out. Naturally, he's going to be more excited about that, and that's the club are going to want him to get the more out of Havertz and Ross Barkley, for example. So, to kind of summarise, he's got to get everybody on his side quickly, especially if he wants to stay in the job longer. Which, by the looks of it, he does. He seems very excited at the opportunity. I actually guess a lot of people did. As soon as the job came up, he wanted it immediately. Like, his representatives were on it. They really wanted him in quick. So he seems to want to be here for a while, but I think he's also very aware that the squad's way too big and he's going to have to trim it down eventually. So I would just kind of summarise with, I think we'll see rotation in games, FA Cup, even Champions League and Premier League. We will see rotation. We will see experiments. And then I think Tuchel will also figure out very quickly who he trusts and who he doesn't. And then the same will happen in the summer. Whether it was Lampard or Tuchel, there will be outgoings for sure.
Yeah, I just guess we can't expect those outgoings to be in January, really. There's not many days left, and on top of that, we were in the pandemic market as well, where there's not a lot of buyers, and that's really been the issue from all along from last summer, isn't it? The fact that Chelsea couldn't push out the players that they wanted to push out as quickly as they could in terms of not causing all this upheaval in the squad. So it's going to be very interesting to see who he picks and chooses over the next. I guess it works as a very long preseason. It's a very pressurized preseason because the results obviously are still crucial. But it's going to be interesting to see who he picks and chooses for the long term. Any worries about the likes of Zuma, because people have mentioned Christensen probably has more of a chance now. We saw how he did it in the Bundesliga when he played for Mönchengladbach, and obviously CDM. Defensive midfielder for his international. People have spoken about maybe why don't we try him in that role as well with all the issues that we've had in that position. Rudiger, we know, is probably, after the reports of positive talks, going to have more of a chance as well. And it's not like we haven't seen Zuma linked away last summer or the summer before with Everton. So do you worry about Zuma as well, even from a technical standpoint in possession? Will he be able to really have a future with this manager? Or do you think it's a clean slate for everyone? Or do you think there are going to be some preconceived thoughts before he comes in?
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, in a perfect world, you would say that everybody has an even playing field, right? But this is not an ideal world. This is football. And I'm sure there'll be preconceived ideas from Tuchel on who he rates and who he doesn't. So in terms of Zuma, I don't think worry is the right word. I would just say probably aware. I think I'll just be aware of the situation. That, like you said there, Matisse, he has been linked away before. He has told the club pretty much firsthand that if he doesn't play, he will go. Like, he just wants to play, and he's very aware that there'll be a market out there for him. So I wouldn't say aware. I would think that Tuchel would have seen the form this year, would have seen the rise in stature in Zuma and Chelsea Football Club, and I think he would be smart to play him for now. But again, I don't know. To be honest, it's too early to tell again. But yeah, I think Zuma, I think the club may have a say on that a little bit as well, because Zuma is very well respected, very well liked in the club, in the hierarchy, and they were kind of on the brink of offering him a massive new deal. We know that for sure. Of course, he wouldn't sign that unless he was guaranteed, time and opportunity. There was even talk about him being a vice captain or even a captain of the club. So, if I was a betting man, I would say he'll stay for the immediate future. But it's definitely something to be aware of because of the market, because of previous times of him saying that I will leave if I don't play. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
100%. Another thing I've been thinking about as well is how the stadium will react to him, because one of the reports that I read is a weakness of Tuchel is his he needs to connect with the fans a lot better than he does. That was maybe his issue at Dortmund. It was reported as well. We've seen that, in the past with Sarri, that he couldn't connect with the fans the way that, he would have helped himself even as well. It would have been a blessing if he could have connected with the fans. He might have had more of a chance as well on that front. And as much as people talk about tactics and whatnot, that is still a big part of it when fans do come back to the ground, being able to connect. I mean, what do you think, in terms of the stadium vibe, do you feel like there's a, I know you're in LA, but do you feel like there's room to improve in that regard for Tuchel, or do you think that's overplayed? Because obviously there's no fans in the ground now, but when they come back, they're probably still going to be hurting from this Frank Lampard sacking as well, isn't it?
I'll be honest with this one. It's a tough one to talk about, but I think it's overplayed for the pure fact that if there were still fans in the stadium, I still think Lampard would be the manager. I do believe that. I genuinely believe that if there were still fans in the stadium, Frank Lampard will still have his job, because we know for sure, or many of us know for sure that Roman pays attention to that. He pays attention to fan kind of criticism. He pays attention to fans, mood in the stadium. That does go into his thinking. And I think, we all know that Lampard would be having the support of the fans right now. That's just whether you agree with the match going versus the online fan. That's a whole different story, which I don't think we should get into. But the facts are that the bridge will be back in Lampard. So in terms of that, and by the way, Roman still sacked him. Even knowing that, he still sacked him. So I think that's why it is overplayed, because Roman still made a decision despite all that. Knowing that the fans would back Lampard, knowing that if the stadium was full, Lampard would still, warrant the job. Let's be honest, he would still deserve to keep the job, because you'd think that results would be maybe a little bit better. I think Lampard was one of the managers that needed the support. I think he Tuchel maybe not as much. I don't think he really cares. I mean, not on the levels of maybe Sarri, who just did not really care at all, right? I think Tuchel's a little smarter than that, and a little bit more modern thinking than that. But yeah, I think with Tuchel, it's you'd think that I'm hurt by this all, just as personal, before I go to the journalist more balanced side. But you have to back Tuchel, and I think nobody should be going in the stadium when it all comes back and going booing him or asking for him. And I think he'll win the fans over very quickly, Matisse. If he's winning games, he'll win the fans over very quickly. And I think he knows that.
Yeah, and he does strike me. The similarity that I can draw to a Conte is that he is very passionate, extremely. Yeah. I've seen some clips of him in training, and shit, man, it looks like as if he's trying to eat the heads off of his players. Like, he's proper in. He's really into it. We talk about some managers potentially not even taking the training sessions, like a Ferguson. They allow their coaches to take it, and they're a little bit more standoffish in terms of their approach. But he is into it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's proper onto them. So I mean, it's going to be an interesting adaptation for a lot of this team in terms of that. I mean, how do you feel in terms of, we've got a run of games, right? I looked at the next 6 fixtures. I think I saw Burnley. You've got Tottenham in there as well. Obviously, Wolves included as well. Sheffield United. So it's a nice run of games. I mean, what's the pinnacle for you this season? If you used to say, obviously with realism as well, what do you think is the best we could hope for this season with Tuchel, with the 6 months that he's got? Yeah,
good point. Good question. I think for me personally, I would say top 4 is a minimum. Like, we have to get top 4. We just simply have to. If you've made the decision and made it now, which we know why it was made, right, and when it was made, we know why. We have to get top 4. We just have to. For more reasons than just playing as financial. There's so much to it. So top 4, I would say we have to go on and at least make, I would say, the final of the FA Cup at least, if not win it. Go one more. I said that in my article that I wrote about Frank Lampard, this morning. So I would say, we have to go FA Cup all the way. And then Champions League's difficult, right? Because, if there's a guy that can maybe get it done in Champions League, it'd be Tuchel. I mean, the guy made the Champions League final last year, and PSG weren't that amazing. They did enough, but they weren't throwing everybody out the water like Bayern were. So he knows how to operate in Europe, and he knows how to get it done in Europe. So I would say that it will go a long way if he beats Atletico over 2 legs. And then whatever happens after that will be a nice little bonus, I think. But that's going to be... Even
in the COVID times, it will still be the 2 legs. Because I had this notion... Well, I thought it would be smarter to go 1 leg. And obviously that creates a whole different situation where you take the tournament to maybe one country and you play it out in a neutral ground. But 2 legs in this pandemic, it just seems a bit foolish to me. And obviously I saw the way the Carabao Cup did it with just one game as well. I know that was... at Old Trafford, and maybe that wasn't completely fair, and it should have been a neutral ground. But we had 1 leg last year in the Champions League. It's kind of weird that they're still going with the 2 legs, isn't it?
Yeah, it's strange. It's definitely strange, and but we all know that these companies and these organisations, controversial or not, it's more money driven than anything. I mean, let's just call it how it is, right? I think that is what it is. So it's whatever's going to make sense financially, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I mean, in a smart world with everything going on, you probably would just go 1 leg in a neutral venue. But yeah, I think Tuchel, will maybe benefit from having no fans and maybe benefit from having 2 legs, because Atletico's backing and their support is very, very good. And, I think the non-fan things might even make Tuchel's life easier. He can just purely focus on the tactics. He can purely focus on the squad. He can purely focus on, improving the team rather than focusing on fan relationships, focusing on the support. Like, that's just another thing he's got to worry about. So, and obviously he knows deep down that Roman pays attention to that, as we saw in the second, with Lampard. So, Yeah, I think it helps Tuchel in a way. So just to summarise, yeah, to win the Premier League, FA Cup, he's got to go as far as he can if not win it. And then I think Champions League is pretty much a hit or miss, I think, in the respect of, if he beats Atletico, that'll go a long way for him. And I think he'll know that, and he's definitely prepared for that. But at the same time, if he goes out, then you can always argue the fact that the team wasn't prepared. It came too soon, and Atletico are a very good team, a very good form right now.
Yeah, exactly. I look at the way, obviously, the only real longevity we've seen at the top of the table in terms of managers is Pep and Klopp. How hands-on they are every single game. After the game, they're still feeding in tactical instruction as well to their players. Do you think that was kind of a motivation behind Chelsea going after a new manager as well with Tuchel? They were clearly looking for a German speaker as well, maybe for the new signings, but just the experience that he brings to the table. He's had Mainz where he's been there for a long time. Klopp was at the same club, I believe, as well. He was at Dortmund, and now obviously PSG. He's got a lot of experience. I mean, just from a coaching standpoint, just how important is experience? Because it seems to be downplayed a lot. We've got a lot of young managers coming through, Steven Gerrard, Pirlo, Arteta. There seems to be a lot of downplaying on just how valuable experience is. What would you say to experience in management?
Yeah, I think it's definitely key it's key in areas in terms of player relationship. Experience is very key, right? Knowing how to handle players. I mean, there's reports that have come out now that Lampard struggled a little bit with that. He kind of blanked people. He didn't talk to, and this is before we know if it's completely true or not. That's just kind of what we've heard. Yeah. I'm talking just from purely what I've read, the same things you've read, but not what people have told me. I think Lampard struggled in that respect. So experience is key in that respect. I think experience is key in the respect of, when tough times arise, knowing what to do and when to do it. I think Lampard was perhaps stubborn in a lot of ways. He was kind of going with the same thing, and and then at the end he kind of began tinkering, right? And it was just two completely different approaches, and there was no consistency to it. I kept saying that when you're in a tough run, you just got to be consistent. You've got to pick your players, you've got to pick your formation, and just go with it. Unfortunately, we saw a bit of a panic, a bit of a inexperience. Let's just call it how it is. Yeah. On the same token, no, I would say that experience can also be overrated because a lot of managers get into jobs and they just fly from the start. Guardiola at Barcelona, is an example. And again, I'm not comparing Lampard to Guardiola before people start getting on that. It's not the case. It's just experience is key in certain areas, but it's not in everything. Does that make sense? In the respect. You can't just go, Lampard didn't get experience, because he was experienced in a lot of other ways. He was just inexperienced at the things that perhaps mean a little bit more in management, such as player relationships, tactical stuff, etc., etc.
The first images as well are just dropping off Tuchel with the squad in terms of them doing the training session as well, which is great to see. You would think that the mood in the camp, because obviously it's been very disjointed for the last few weeks, it would say at least. You'd think that the overall mood would be up in the camp as well. It's going to be very interesting to see how they play against Wolves, because obviously, like I said, tactical instruction wise and real detail is probably not he hasn't been given the most opportunity in terms of one session. But from a media standpoint, we speak about how important this is as well. I mean, Lampard for the first season, and then for me, just before the Arsenal game, I'd say his media, the way that he dealt with the media was fantastic. And then when things, maybe the pressure got onto him a little bit more, we started to see a little bit of wildness in terms of the media dealings. We saw the argument with Liam, not the argument, but the conversation with Liam Tooney in the conference as well before the Luton game. How's Tuchel, do you think, in the media? Do you think, because we've had a lot of different managers in the last 5-6 years, and the way that they've all dealt with the media has been completely different. Do you think Tuchel and the English media, how do you think that will play out?
It's going to be so interesting, man. I spoke to a lot of people actually in media today, journalists and people who actually go to the press conferences. I spoke to a couple today. They've all said the same thing. It's just like, we just don't know what to expect. And these are experienced people that go to every press conference, and the guys on Zoom asking questions to Lampard. So today, I just don't know what to expect, because there's this kind of is he gonna? There's this kind of intriguement of is he going to adapt because now he's in England, English media, we know how it is, or is he going to just stay kind of to what we know he is? And he can be very controversial to the media, right? We know he can be very controversial to players in the respect of he likes it his way, this way, and he's very stubborn in that respect. That can also translate to the media, but it's that whole argument again, Matisse, earlier is he smart? Does he adapt? Is he smart enough to kind of, or is he willing enough, should I say, not smart enough, is he willing enough to kind of adapt to, and that will tell you a lot about if he's here for a short-term job or does he want to be here for a while? Because if he wants to be here for a while, he's going to need to get the media on his side as much as he can, and he's going to need to get the players and the fans as much on his side as he can. If he comes in, breaking relationships with certain players already, doesn't really talk about or care about the fans, and is already controversial in the media, then we can maybe tell that he hasn't really adapted and hasn't changed. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. But what I kind of been told and spoke to people, we just don't know what to expect. But if I was to guess, I would say it's the latter, that he will probably adapt slightly. Just like what I've heard, like he's very desperate for the job. He wants the job. He likes the job. He thinks he can do a lot with it. So with all that said, I think he'll be smart to kind of settle down a little bit, at least for the first few months.
Yeah, it's funny because it feels like every time a manager comes in, they all have these little beautiful dreams of being here for a long time, and they get themselves excited. And we as Chelsea fans just look at them like, you don't know how it goes.
Very true. Very, very true.
It's like seeing the innocence of a child. You know what I mean? It's like you really don't get it, do you? You don't get it. But I know the 18 months screams short-termism, but in terms of the managers, knocking around at the moment, we've seen Nagelsmann. That was never even a guarantee in the summer anyway, because every big club in world football will be looking at him if they have a position available, or even if they don't. I think because he's just that promising. Pochettino's obviously tied down at PSG. I don't see him going anywhere. There is a potential for this to last. I'm not saying Klopp or Pep time, but even three years would be nice. It would be nice to have a situation where Chelsea do settle down a bit. Speak about players like Kante getting a bit unrest. They don't enjoy the drama of it all. It would be nice if a 3-year situation did unfold and we did get a little bit of consistency. I mean, how long? If you was to make a prediction, I mean, how long do you think is the maximum we could wish for this? Because he does have issue with previous boards and butting heads and whatnot. We've spoken about his character in terms of he wants it his way. He is gonna challenge people. I mean, with this board, that doesn't really sound great, does it? Because they also do like to butt heads as well.
I mean, if he does that, he will lose. He will lose. Like he lost at PSG, and PSG is also a very political club, should I say? But this Chelsea is a whole lot different level. Like, we all know that now. We're very experienced in that. If he tries that, I think he knows that he will lose. And whether he wants to lose or not is a different story, right? I don't think he really cared if he lost in PSG. He kind of left and was like, okay, I'm leaving. So, but if he's as sincere and as willing as he seems to be in the first day, and he seems like he wants to stay, then he will have to adapt, because if he goes one-on-one with the board at Chelsea, there's only one way. And we all know that Chelsea won't change. We definitely know that now, let's be honest.
Do you think that Chelsea just won't change now? I know obviously the sacking of Frank Lampard would allude that, Chelsea just will never be a long-term club. But do you think there is a potential still for Chelsea to have a manager for a long time? Or do you think Lampard was kind of like the final sword, as be like, no, if they can't get it here, then it's not going to happen?
No, I think there's definitely, and people have said that, right? And I was kind of kidding when I said that Chelsea has changed, but Abramovich still craves that dynasty. He still craves that long-term manager. And when he appointed Lampard, it was a free hit. We know that now. And Lampard was never really truly back. Let's be honest here, to really succeed with you when you hear everything else that's coming out. But
yeah,
Abramovich still does crave that, and he still wants that. He still wants someone that's going to play attacking, free-flowing football for a long time. It's the same reason he gave Pep Guardiola a blank check, right? And he said you can have whatever you want whenever you want it. And obviously that didn't come to fruition, but he definitely still craves that, and he is changing. Like, Abramovich, let's be honest, he's slightly changing in respect that Lampard was only sacked yesterday.
Yeah.
A while ago, a number of years ago, he would have been sacked a lot quicker than that.
Yeah, I've been saying the same thing, 100%.
Yeah, there is adaptation slowly there. And we've hit a little bit of a backward step in the respect of the project was promised, the long-termness was promised, and now it hasn't come to fruition. But it's slowly, there's a slow transition. I think Roman's still searching for that one guy, but the key word in my sentence there is he's still searching for it. Like, he still does want that for sure.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people felt like, Frank would have got more time because it's Frank. But I would argue that someone more experienced and maybe has a world-class pedigree in terms of their reputation and what they've done previously with the experience has more time. Is going to get more time because they'll have evidence to fall back on in those crisis meetings. And I think with Tuchel, one thing you are getting one of the best managers around in terms of if you used to pick a crop and a selection of top managers, he would be in that crop, whether he's your personal selection or not. So you would hope that he would get that time that we've been alluding to try and form a team, because it is a lot easier to build when you don't have the constant question marks over individual players. Are they going in? Are they going out? And obviously this over bloated squad doesn't help. But hopefully this summer things return to normal, and we can continue with what we started over the summer, which was to overhaul the squad. I think really, what I'm most excited about is when he does pick and select, getting rid of the peripherals of the squad and making it a little bit more, cleaning up the place a bit. Because I do think, it's extremely unhealthy to have 3 left backs. We've seen Alonso obviously have that moment in that game where he went straight to the team bus, and we've never really seen him since. After that, you're going to have issues behind the scenes after you see something like that unfold. I mean, we're going to wrap up soon as well, but I want to look at Tuchel in terms of his PSG and his Dortmund. What are you most excited about from what you've seen, up until this point in Tuchel's managerial career? What do you think he's going to bring to the table the best, really, that will change us at Chelsea?
An identity, I think, is the most exciting thing I'm looking for. It's just because we know how he's going to play. Like, we already know it's going to be high press, it's going to be all energy, it's going to be attacking, it's going to be free flowing. And personally, someone who's a coach of football, and I enjoy all different aspects of the game. I enjoy it. I even enjoyed Jose Mourinho putting 10 men behind the ball and winning 1-0. Like, I enjoy that too. But I think if most people had to choose, how you want to see your team play, Abramovich included, right? We want to see free-flowing attacking football, and Tuchel's going to bring that. So I'm really excited to see that, just kind of see how he gets the best out of the attacking players, the attacking 5. I think we'll, just to see how much they do develop. And I'm obviously excited, like most Chelsea fans, I'm very excited to see that team and Havertz. Like, naturally, they are 2 biggest signings, more so. I'm more excited for Havertz personally. I think that if he's put in the right system and the team's built around him, he can be incredible. I genuinely believe that. So more excited for him. I think the whole German speaking thing is a bit overblown. Like, Chelsea have not just gone, oh, he's German, we'll get him in. And because Tuchel speaks fluent English, Havertz speaks fluent English, so does Werner. So that's not going to change that much. It will help. There might be a little bit more comfortability and respect, but it's a little bit overrated. It's more about Tuchel's ideas rather than the languages he speaks. Especially when Havertz and Werner speak English. So that's probably the thing I'm most excited about, man. Is just seeing us play having an identity, playing the same way every game if we can. Which may take time to get consistent because obviously the nature of the timing of the appointment, but just really excited to see an identity and us play free-fire attacking football, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think Rodgers spoke about it really well in the clip that I saw as well. I'm excited to see us have an identity, but also the flexibility to change formations. And yes, the core values and the identity remains, but we do switch it up when need be if we have to adapt. And again, it doesn't mean that we're going to start playing negatively. It doesn't mean that we're going to ditch all of our fundamentals, but we are able to tweak it with that tactical flexibility and the knowledge that he has in different systems as well. Is really just as it will depend on just how quickly the boys can pick it up, which will be very interesting, especially a lot of young players who this is really the first time they've gone through a managerial change and a change in ethos and a change of the demands and everything. Throughout the youth they would have had the same youth academy coaches throughout. They would have been changing throughout the age groups, but they would have known everybody that they're going to. They've had their loan spells now, but this is completely different. This is a top manager who's going to demand the absolute best immediately, and there's not going to be the relationship that they've already built from the free season that they had with Lampard. It's literally tonight's the first night, let's get going kind of thing. Super chat here from Matthias. We won the Champions League last time we've done this. I wouldn't even think about that. Do you know what I mean? The Champions League for me is just a hit and hope. It's a lovely competition. It's the best competition in terms of when you win it. I don't think there's a better feeling, but it's not something that lives and dies with me in terms of expectations, in terms of demands from a head coach. A lot of things can go very right in the Champions League, luck-wise, and a lot of things can go very wrong. We know it as Chelsea fans with the Luis Garcia goal, with the Barcelona Iniesta goal. I'll get Dan upset now.
Drogba.
Do you know what I mean? It's a disgrace and all these things. So, you know what I mean? That's not a competition. I think every time, the league always shows where you are as a team and where you are as a club. The league doesn't lie in terms of the 38 games. It doesn't tell a lie. The things usually balance themselves out.
It'll be a very Chelsea thing, right, for us to go and win the Champions League. That would be such a Chelsea thing to do. But yeah, like I said it earlier, and you just echoed it, Matisse, and you're spot on. It's going to be more of a free hit. you know, if we can go far in it and beat Atletico, then fantastic. But it's so many intangible and so many components in the Champions League. Draw, who get the away leg in the first or playing away second, like. You know, injuries, there's rotation of squads with the league. There's so many things that can go right and wrong in the Champions League. So, yeah, I would say it's more of a free hit than anything. But, you know, trying to be optimistic today, because it's obviously a new era at Chelsea. It'll be the most Chelsea thing to do for Tuchel, just to go in there, beat Atletico, and just run for everybody and win it. That'd be brilliant.
100%. Well, people, we're going to wrap up now. We're going to actually have another stream, which is part of the weekly schedule. Obviously, this is an emergency episode because Tuchel has just been appointed. We can never predict the time of that. But we have the Battle of the North kicking off with Saeed, with Big Steve, and with Callum from Coppish at 10 o'clock. We're going to do a Northern Battle of the North show. Liverpool, Man City, Man United. We're going to talk about them. Obviously, they're in a title race. Hopefully, you know, never know. Things go incredibly well. We may even be able to join them, but you know that will probably be next season over this season if we're being realistic. But yeah, it's been a great episode. We've got in to talk about Tuchel, which has been great, and I'm really excited, man. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, what happened hurt, you know, over the last few days. It's been very numbing. It's been very surreal in terms of not even just the sacking, but also the reports and everything just dropping at one time. It's been a bit wild, but now it's an opportunity for us to all move on. You know, it's a new lease of life. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. And it's a fresh feeling. Like I said, he's taking training. Whether he's finished taking training, I don't know, but he was taking training. We got to see all those fresh pictures, and we have a Wolves game that we can go into with a fresh mind tomorrow. Dan, let them know where they can find you, bro, and what other stuff you've got coming out.
Yeah, man, appreciate that. Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at MacAsport. I think everybody in the world now has got sport in their username. So yeah, pretty easy one. MacAsport McCarthy. You can find me there, and yeah, just doing bits with obviously Simon Phillips. Obviously, me and him go way back. Obviously, Matisse will know that as well because he's with us. So obviously, us two are working together. I'm just doing articles and podcasts over there. We've got podcasts coming out on Thursday with Fabrizio Romano, so that'll be good. Good friend of the show. Someone I talk to a lot. He's a good guy. So we're doing that. That'll be out Friday, and just articles, man. And you know, obviously, I dropped some things in there on Twitter when I'm allowed to, when I can. Got to be careful. I know a lot of people don't understand that, but you know, you got to be careful who you talk to and what you release. So obviously, I dropped today that the announcement will come later for Tuchel. It did because everybody was expecting at 5 o'clock. It was never going to happen at 5 o'clock, and I was told it wasn't. So yeah, just that's where you'll find me on Twitter, dropping in little things here and there, and obviously podcasting articles as well, and jumping on streams with the boys when I can.
100%, and yeah, people, I kind of echo that enough. You cannot. You know, you have to understand in this game of reporting that you cannot just drop whatever. We look at it with the articles with the Athletic. They had a lot of that, you know, information probably during the season when Lampard was still here, but they can't drop it. You know, like I said, you lose a lot of the trust that you build up. You lose a lot of your sources and your intelligence if you go dropping stuff whenever you want. You have to wait until you're allowed. You have to make sure it's concrete. You have to do your homework and source it from multiple people. So credit to Dan as well for doing that, because you're very responsible on Twitter, to be fair to you. And that's not something that we get on Twitter a lot. We definitely get a lot of journalism where it's just like, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Hit and hope kind of journalism, which is nuts. People, I will see you at 10 o'clock if you come back as well for the Battle of the North show. Like I said, that's a new weekly show that's starting at 10 o'clock. That's the third one and final show. Obviously, you know the other two that have been going on for a few weeks now. So I'll see you for that. And we'll probably talk more Tuchel. We'll talk about the other clubs as well. And I'll probably get bullied because our club's ninth. But like I said, we will have our time again, people. We will be rising. I'll see you later.